Hi, everyone. I think it's the start of the new session. And my name is Lillian. I'm from the Learning Engineering Institute from ASU. And today I'm going to talk about quantifying the relations of academic status report, which is a system that we have at ASU that is an manual early alert system for teachers and instructors to submit a report at any time during the semester to students. And how does it relate to student academic outcomes and retention? Our team is from the Learning Engineering Institute. We are a group of people that come from different domains. Me, myself, I position as a data scientist, and we have researchers from psychology, linguistics, and we are a very comprehensive team. And in this presentation, I'm going to go over the ASR and the questions we ask about ASRs, and the dataset and the variable selection, the structural equation modeling, SEM, which is a methodology we selected to model the ASR, and conclusion and discussion. So let's get started from the ASRs and the questions. We all want our students to have a very smooth academic journey, just like a smooth drive from Phoenix to Sedona. However, there's always detour happening, and there's always one side of the road that is closed on 87. And sometimes all that it takes is one instructor to notice, and when the student hits a bump in their academic journey. And that's why the academic status report system is introduced. And what is a academic status report and what is included in it? So first of all, a student will see a triangle blinking icon in their My ASU next to the course they take. And when they click into it, there are several fields that the instructors can give in the report. And the required field is a grade based on the student performance. It can be a grade of A to E, or it can be satisfactory or unsatisfactory. And optionally, the instructors can specify the reasons for the grade, the action items for the students, and also free text field of comments from the instructor. And here are some sample grades and sample action and sample reasons. For the grades, the instructor can select from definitely more grades from here, but these are just samples. And actions and reasons are also selectable. There are in total, I think right now there are 9 actions and 11 reasons the instructors can select to assign to students, but don't trust me, I need to review my numbers. But it is a selectable item list, and instructors can select multiple action items and multiple reasons for the same ASR report to the student too. And in last year, we conducted a student survey, and we gathered insights from 356 students from ASU. And we found that 31% of the students, they have received at least one ASR. And 44% of them reported that they felt bad when receiving ASRs, because a lot of times ASRs are considered to be a warning from the instructors, and sometimes instructors will assign negative grades like D, E, failing to students. And 44% of the students receiving it said that they felt bad. Well, 59%, almost 60% of the students stated that they changed their academic behavior. For example, they increased their class attendance after receiving ASRs. So now we can see that students are feeling bad when receiving ASRs. However, a lot of them changed their behaviors. So we really want to ask, how do students' ASR experience related to their academic performance? And furthermore, how do the experiences related to their next semester retention, because we do care about retaining students at ASU. So then we went into a scavenger hunt and gathered all the valuable data from our ASU databases. And also here is a special thank you to Phil Acuria. He is the one providing the data set for us. So we have multiple data sources or from different data tables, including the academic status report records, the student term and class records, as well as student demographic information. And overall, we gathered 64K ASR records from 13K freshman students. And we gathered data from 2 semesters, fall 2023 and spring 2024, from over 2,000 classes. And through these scavenger hunts, we altogether pulled 94 variables. And because we are a comprehensive team with educational researchers, psychology researchers, so we further decided to distill it to 14 variables that we found meaningful to investigate these 2 research questions. So we start from reviewing the entire variable list as a team and marking those ones that are more relevant to the research questions. And then we had a group co-design session to finalize the variable selection list, including what are more relevant to be correlated to students' final grades, as well as their retention, and also how should we define the ASR experiences. And we came to a conclusion that we're gonna differentiate students' ASR experiences based on the ASR valence, aka the positive, the negative, and neutral. And then the experiences are quantified as the count of ASRs, the count of actions, the count of reasons, the count of comments, and also the average length of ASRs, categorized by their valence. And as you can see that the neutral ASR experience has more than 99% of the NAs in each of these variables, so they are excluded from the analyses. And also for the control variables, we identified 5 variables representing students' intersectionality and 2 variables represent students' social engagement, that is after the group discussion. And for dependent variables, we use the fall 2023 term GPA of all careers to represent students' academic performance, and then spring 2024 registration status to represent their next semester retention. So now we have our variables representing students' ASR experience. We have the control variable of student intersectionality as well as their social engagement. Also, we have our dependent variables. So now it's time to do some modeling. We selected the structural equation modeling to model our data. And here is why. Because first of all, it enables the construction of latent constructs that are not easy to directly measure. For example, in our case, it will be the negative and positive ASR experiences that came from the observed variables we just created. And in the example from the 2018 research, the researchers also constructed latent variables such as problem-solving skills and connectedness to professors. These are latent factors that are pretty difficult to measure. So the researchers created those variables and then later can be measured by the structural equation modeling. And also, the SEM utilizes researchers a priori to inform the model structure. Because in our team, we have so many knowledgeable researchers that they have a great prior knowledge on what can be impactful or associating with students' success. So we utilized researchers' knowledge as a priori to build our models. And also it can examine the relationships among observed variables and latent constructs, meaning that we can put both the observed variables, in this case control variables, and the latent constructs, which is the ASR experiences, both in the model. And our approach is to build two sets of models, one to predict academic performance, the other to predict retention. And we test how positive ASR experience and negative ASR experiences relate to each dependent variable, with control variables as student intersectionality and social engagement. And for each set of the model, we build 4 SCMs. The first one being the base model with only the control variables. And the second model is a negative ASR model, incorporated negative ASR experiences. And the third model is the positive ASR model with positive ASR experiences and a control variable. And finally, the comprehensive model with both negative and positive ASR experiences and the control variable. And the same set of 4 models are built for predicting next semester retention. And now we come to the result of our SEM model building. First of all, it's some numbers for academic performance SEM's goodness of fit. I know there are a lot of terms that are used here that are classic goodness of fit indices to evaluate the SEMs. And I have an appendix that has a very detailed explanation of all of these indices. For now, I'm just gonna give a brief introduction on what is the preferred threshold for all of these indices. So for RAM-SEA, it should be less or equal to 0.05. And for GFI, CFI, and TLI, they should be large or equal to 0.95. And there are empirical standards from previous research, and I also attached in the appendix. And for chi-square value, it actually needs to be non-significant results. But as you can see that all of these, except for the base model, they're significant. However, I could argue that because the chi-square will be significant with extremely large sample size as we have here with 13,000 students. And by looking into the results, we can see that both negative and comprehensive ASR model achieved decent model fit. So in the next slides, I will report the results coming from these 2 models for academic performance SEMs. And for next semester retention SEMs, the same methods and procedures, judging by the goodness of fit, we chose to report the positive and the negative ASR model. So now let's look into some model results, more numbers. So first of all, constructing the latent variables for academic performance SEM. This, as a reminder, this is to predict students' fall 2023 GPA. And firstly, we constructed 2 latent variables. One is the negative ASR experience, the other is the positive ASR experiences. And we can see that each observed variables listed under the latent variable loaded positively to the latent construct, meaning that when we are looking at the negative ASR experience, it not only consists of the total count of negative ASRs, but also the normalized average negative ASR comment length also contributed positively to these latent factor or construct. And for the positive ASR experiences, it is consist of the number of positive ASRs, the number of actions, reasons, as well as the average length of the comment. And they all contribute positively to that latent construct. And when we look into the coefficient of the negative ASR experience to student academic performance, we see that it was significantly negatively correlated to student GPA, meaning that when a student receives more negative ASRs and they receive longer comments from their negative ASRs, they are likely to have a lower GPA. While on the other hand, positive ASR experience was significantly positively correlated to student GPA. But the coefficients, which are all standardized, it is smaller than the negative ASR in its absolute value. And when looking at the controlling variables, consistent with the prior research, that student intersectionality, being a US citizen, older in age, and first-gen students, and also higher in financial need, also reported as an underrepresented minority, were significantly negatively correlated to student GPA. Well, on the other side, students living in a residence hall was significantly positively correlated to student GPA. So there may be some magic happening when students were more engaged with other students, or that could also be a sign that a student is a traditional student who live in the residence hall compared to non-traditional students who may work full-time and have a family outside. And for the next semester retention, similar pattern holds for the factor loadings, that they are both positively loaded. All of the observed variable is positively loaded to the latent variables. And again, negative ASR experience was significantly negatively correlated to student spring retention. So that if you receive more negative ASRs, you are less likely to retain or persist in the next spring semester. And the similar pattern holds for the positive ASR experiences. So the positive ASR experiences are positively related to students' spring retention. So if you received more positive ASRs and the instructors specified more actions and reasons and comments to you in these positive ASRs, you are more likely to persist in the spring semester. And the same pattern holds for the student intersectionality correlation to student spring retention. And again, student social engagement is positively related to their spring retention. So there is definitely something related to social engagement factors, being athletes, and also being living together in a residence hall with your colleague that may help you to persist in your next semester. And that could be reasons that these students may also get more additional support from the school or ASU. So after looking into those data, what can we make a conclusion out of it? So first of all, the ASR system functions effectively as an early alert system because the ASR, negative ASR experience is a significant indicator of students' GPA as well as their spring retention, meaning that instructors can fairly accurately recognize those students who are struggling and give them an ASR as an early warning. However, sending alert itself may not be sufficient enough to avert student struggles. So remember in the previous study, 60% of the students mentioned that they've somewhat changed their academic behaviors after receiving an ASR. However, judging by our quantitative results, even though they've made changes to their academic behavior, it may not be enough to avert their struggle, or it may not enough to boost their GPA or make them retain in the next semester. So we argue that Further support is still in need, and we should move beyond the alerts and towards facilitating support. And here is an ideal scenario that we would love to see in the future. That is a mutual communication among the major stakeholders in a supportive system, among instructor, students, and support staff, such as advisors, that if we could use ASRs as a source of information to indicate which student is struggling, then the advisor could be alerted and then connect with the students. And also the students will have a channel to talk back to the instructor and supportive staff so that the information can not only be delivered to students, but actually transform into actionable items that is getting used by instructor, advisors, as well as students. So that is all about the presentation. Now, is there any questions? Yeah, so students can have both positive and negative ASRs, and we count them separately. So if a student A receive 5 negative ASRs from Math 117 and 3 positive ASRs from English 101, then they will be counted as separately in the 2 columns. Yes, we do have different models, but all models use the same set of variables. And the dataset is aggregated by term. So we count regardless which class they take. It's like all together, how many negative ASRs they got from fall 2023 and how many positive ASRs they got from fall 2023. And these will be 2 variables in 2 columns. Oh, we don't. And that is actually a great addition. We were considering incorporating students online and in-person status, but we were not able to pinpoint a variable to include. So we decided to not include that variable. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll give your time back. And also special shout out to Maria, my colleague, who is here supporting me.